survived. This week, the DOJ announced the alleged ringleader of the attack in Benghazi will not face the death penalty. This despite the death of 4 Americans, including the first U.S. ambassador to die in the line of duty since 1979. Trace Gallagher live in our West Coast newsroom with a report. Trace?
Megan, Ahmed Abu Khatallah was captured by U.S. commandos in 2014 and brought to the U.S. aboard a Navy ship where he was questioned by a team of FBI interrogators. At the time, Attorney General Eric Holder said Khatallah's capture proves the U.S. government will expend every effort to capture terrorists who harm U.S. citizens. Critics of the Obama administration said the prosecution should not be handled by a civilian court, but the feds said their case was strong and vowed to seek the ultimate penalty. Now the DOJ is shifting, saying, quote, the department is committed to ensuring that the defendant is held accountable for his alleged role in the terrorist attack, and if convicted, he faces a sentence of life in prison. Much of the government's case remains secret, and the DOJ won't explain its reversal except to say they do these on a case-by-case basis. But a legal source tells Fox News that prosecutors are having trouble getting some evidence admitted into court, as well as bringing witnesses from Libya to the U.S. for trial. And with the case back in the headlines, so too is the U.S. response to the Benghazi attacks, overseen by then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, which led to congressional hearings and eventually uncovered information about Clinton's use of a private email server during her time at the State Department. Unlike most terrorism suspects, Abu Khatallah does not appear interested in a plea deal. Instead, he maintains his innocence and is insisting on a jury trial, meaning the Benghazi attacks could be in and out of the headlines for months to come. Megan.
Thank you, Trace. Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, a Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Mark, good to see you.
Good to see you, Megan.
So there you have it. They've made their decision.
Yes, they have. They're saying death penalty, no death penalty. What difference at this point does it make? Well, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference to those people you had on just before who saw their friends die. And think about this. 2 years ago, the Justice Department sought the death penalty in the case of the Boston Marathon bomber, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. At the time, Eric Holder put out a statement which said, and I'm going to read it to you, the nature of the conduct at issue and the resultant harm compel this decision. Compel. Do they not compel the same decision in the case of the Benghazi attack? Was the nature of the conduct at issue and the resultant harm not equally grave? This guy was involved in a premeditated Al-Qaeda terrorist attack against a U.S. diplomatic facility on the anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. He killed a U.S. ambassador, the first one killed in the line of duty since 1979, plus 3 other Americans serving their country, risking their lives abroad to protect us. And we don't pursue the death penalty for him, but we do for the Boston bomber? It's absurd.
What do you think is the reason for that? Because here you have this guy who allegedly killed 4 Americans, including our ambassador, and injured countless others. And as you point out, the Boston Marathon bombers, in an act of terror, killed 4 people, 3 at the scene of the bombing, plus a police officer later, and injured countless others. And so in one case, it was very clear to the DOJ that the death penalty was in order. In this case, why do you think it was not?
Well, they haven't explained their reasoning, so we can only speculate. It may be possible, as Trace suggested, that they don't have a very strong case, and that they don't think they can win a death penalty case, which is pretty pathetic because it means they haven't gotten the other people involved, they don't have other witnesses, they don't have the information yet. That's pretty bad as it is because they're the ones who keep telling us Article 3 courts are the way to go. If they can't get a death penalty conviction, then that's an indictment of them. But the other possibility, quite frankly, is that this is really inconvenient for Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton to have a big trial and a death penalty trial going. Because if they pursue just not a death penalty case, just a regular case, then they only have to, Andy McCarthy, a former prosecutor, had a good article in National Review about this, that they only have to pursue a very narrow case that shows that this guy was there at the time of the attack, on the night of the attack, and participated, and boom, it's over. If they go to a death penalty case, then it goes in, after they convict him, it goes into a sentencing phase where there's essentially a second trial where they have to convince a jury to unanimously unanimously vote to execute him. And he can then turn that into a trial of the United States. He can say, well, I was just a bit player, and these other 10 guys, which the Obama administration didn't capture, were the real guys behind it. Or he can start asking for information about when did they know it was a terrorist attack and when did they know. We could have discovery and have all sorts of information put out. So this could be very inconvenient.
The interesting thing about this is this guy, do you remember the strawberry frappe? This is the guy. The New York Times tracked him down. They couldn't find him. They were like, we are going to go on the hunt. We are going to find the people who perpetrated this attack. Meanwhile, they hadn't arrested anybody. The New York Times is talking to this guy over a strawberry frappe overseas. So the New York Times found him, but we couldn't. But he talked. As the frappe has the ability to make us all do, he talked. And in that interview, he said something to the effect of, the Americans blew it. Where was the security? So question whether they want him repeating that message in a U.S. courtroom.
Absolutely. And the other thing that he said when he was over the strawberry frappe, when he was holding court in Benghazi with reporters, he said that this really wasn't a premeditated terrorist attack. This was a spontaneous protest in response to a video. That was his explanation for it.
Sounds familiar. He's in agreement with the Obama administration. Wouldn't they want him to say that?
And so, no, they don't want him to say that, because then what happens is Obama administration federal prosecutors have to go and lay out the case while this was a premeditated terrorist attack, and they have to say what they knew, when they knew it, and all of a sudden all sorts of evidence comes out.
The message they've been spinning, in other words. They've been saying this is not a pre-planned terrorist attack. That's what they said so many times, and now he's going to get out there. I see now. They have to choose which narrative they want to marry themselves to if they let him talk.
That's exactly right. So they're looking, what they really want is a plea deal, because they want this case to go away. So if you notice, who's been praising them today? It's the terrorist lawyers are the ones who are praising them. They said it was a courageous decision.
Oh, boy.
They want to convince this guy to plea so they don't have to have a trial. So this is what's happening here is they don't want any of this stuff. Strawberry frappe?
I mean, just saying. We know he's a fan. Mark, great to see you.
Thank you.